David is on a winning streak. Chapters 5 and 6 of 2 Samuel that we're reading today, it almost reads like a highlight reel. Because David has entered his golden years. This is the pinnacle of his life. After years and years and years of waiting, living on the run, in constant fear and danger for his life, David has finally ascended to the throne of Israel. Right? Chapter 5 kicks off with his official public anointing ceremony. After being privately anointed God's king all those years ago, Israel now recognizes David as their king. And he goes on to win a couple of battles. He claims Jerusalem for Israel and makes it the capital city. And it's this like David and Goliath style battle. He's the underdog trying to besiege this impenetrable city, and yet he claims victory. And then he fights against the Philistines, and they have been a persistent threat and danger to Israel ever since the beginning of Saul's reign. But David is finally able to kind of push them back and neutralize this threat. But he wins not because of his battle prowess necessarily or his strategic savvy, though David is a time-tested warrior at this point. He wins by depending on God's guidance. Did you notice that? He asks for God's direction as he goes into battle. And I think that is incredibly significant. It reminds me of this little story from 1 Samuel chapter 23, when David he's a fugitive. He's on the run, but he's trying to save this city of Keilah. And he asks continually for God's guidance. Lord, what's my next move? How do we claim victory? What should I do? The reason that this is significant to me is because David is in a drastically different point in his life in 1 Samuel 23 than he is in 2 Samuel 5. In 1 Samuel 23, David is desperate. He's at rock bottom. He is a hunted man living out in the wilderness where, it is a struggle to just survive. David's a desperate man, and he is seeking God's guidance during a time where he is incredibly aware of his own need and his own mortality and the fragility of his life, right? Life and death for him, he is walking on a knife's edge. 2 Samuel 5, David is on the up and up, right? If he was in the wilderness then, he is in the green garden land now. And don't you think when we are in the proverbial green garden land, when we're on the up and up, things are going well, it is so easy to forget how much we need God. It is so easy to forget to seek his voice and his guidance, to start tricking ourselves into thinking that we've kind of got it handled, that we can be self-reliant. We've got this covered. I want to be increasingly aware that I am in no less need of God in the green garden moments of my life than I am in the wilderness moments of my life. And I think David is taking a gigantic step in spiritual maturity by recognizing this. The world around us tells us that the mark of maturity is actually becoming more independent and self-reliant and not needing other people. But spiritual maturity is not needing God less. We never need God less. Spiritual maturity is actually a growing realization of my need for him. I just become more and more aware of how dependent I am on him, how much I need his guidance, how much I depend on his voice. And David recognizes that. And it leads him to worship right? Samuel 6, he brings the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and it's this transcendent moment. I'd point you to the email. I get to nerd out about all sorts of Garden of Eden allusions that are happening in this passage. It is a pivotal point in Israel's history. The presence of God that the Ark of the Covenant represents is coming to reside in the midst of the people of God. And David is worshiping with all of his might. He sets aside his royal robes and takes on the simple, humble garment of a priest, a linen ephod. And he dances before the Lord with all of his might. And his wife looks down on him because of it. She expresses disdain and contempt. She says, "Haven't you made a fool of yourself today? That was quite a show you gave everybody." And I love what he says to her. I want to be like David in this moment. He says, "I wasn't dancing for your good opinion. I wasn't doing it for you. I wasn't doing it for the people's opinion. I was dancing for the Lord. And for the Lord who sustained me in the wilderness and who sustains me now, I will become even more undignified than this. He is worthy of my unabashed worship." And so here's my question for us today. If maturity means just becoming increasingly aware of our need for God and of his guidance and his voice, what does it look like to turn the volume of God's voice up in your life? And I think for some of us that might mean that we need to turn the volume of other people's voices down. If you struggle with a persistent fear and insecurity about what people think about you, me too. You are so not alone. That is so human. It is so easy for us to spend so much time and energy wondering what people think about us, what they say about us. And isn't it true that the life of a disciple leads us to make all sorts of decisions that other people see as foolish? Maybe you worry about what people are going to think about you if you talk about God at work, if you are unapologetically public about your faith. Maybe you worry what your friends will think if you stay true to the values of the kingdom that aren't really popular in our culture. Sometimes people will look down on us for choosing the life of a disciple. And so are there voices in your life that you need to turn down the volume on, that you need to right size so that you can hear God's voice more loudly, more clearly? Are there voices that you need to turn down so that you can turn the volume of God's voice up? We never need him less. We just become more aware of how much we need him. Let's turn his volume up. Take care, friends.